ho ho! Merry Christmas and season's greetings to film lovers and indie film supporters out there. The countdown to the seasonal festivities is on, and here at Cine Bijou, we're getting pretty festive ourselves. We love Christmas and we love Christmas movies. And for this special seasonal episode, we needed a special guest with a love and knowledge of festive films to match or even best our own. Earlier this year, I had the pleasure of being a guest on this incredibly insightful show, and now they get to feature on ours. Host of the acclaimed Jacked Up Review Show podcast, Sully and I sat down for a look at the movies of Christmas past, present and yet to come that have and continue to shake up the traditional seasonal film. So pull open your tin of Quality Street and pour yourself some mulled wine for a festive edition of Cine Bijou. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I've been wanting to sort of...
It was a fun topic.
Yeah. But thanks for jumping on to do this special Christmas episode that I want to record. I've been trying to sort of think of something because not starting up, I started this podcast, I think back in 22, but I never got past one episode because I was just so busy in other projects and other things. And then I had the idea of, well, look, I've done a couple of interviews on Zoom where people have said, please don't use my video because I look awful. And so
I'll put a photo.
I looked at the transcript, and because there are some people who, when you interview, they come off fine on paper. Oh, I say paper, on the screen as well as on video or in a podcast. But there are some people that when you transcribe it to written form, it loses something because there's something about the mannerisms and the stress and intonation in their voice when they do, that is missed. And you think, well, this would work better if you actually listen to it in context. Bingo. Whereas if you read it, you might think, good God, what is this person saying? So that's where I came to the idea of restarting the podcast. And then I thought, well, I really want to do a Christmas special and have a look at Christmas films, but from a left field kind of perspective,
It's so funny how you're telling me about this interview. I once had a guy, I just reached out in a Facebook group where martial artists and stunt people were there. Some
Yeah.
of them who had done big stuff like Vikings and what have you, and
Yeah.
some of them who were just kind of like you would never know their name, but really nice and good. They know
Hmm.
what their time management means. And I encountered this one guy who's from Ireland. And then he's
Yeah.
like, oh, by the way, can you not use my name or anything at all? And then I just throw the interview out halfway through
Yeah.
just because he's also just so shy. Like I asked the simplest question, he just won't give you anything. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, he implies as if the someone who he knows who works for the IRA would try to kill him. I'm like,
Yeah.
you either got a very vapid imagination, but at the same time, if you're just not going to say anything, why? I'm not going to waste any, you know, arm and leg editing a chat bot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just
That's a
nothing.
bit of a strange request.
This is did you just have a big ego, or
Yeah.
if you're in that fear of your life, I'm surprised you're even on social media and asked.
Well, look, like I said, I've been trying to find something to get you on the show to discuss. I think I suggested, hey, let's talk about the VHS films, the VHS anthology films that Shudder has turned into a franchise, and I don't think you've really seen any of them. So
Unfortunately, I am long behind. I think they're to number 7 now, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I watched the last one, which was I think called VHS Beyond, and it kind of picks up on one of the episodes from the second VHS film,
Ah,
unimaginatively titled VHS 2. Uh, and it's all about, alien invasions, alien monsters, extraterrestrial sort of,
eh,
horror stories. It's all right. It's starting to get a bit, um, I think there's a lot of effort that goes into these films. I think that they're really trying to sort of create something. But
mm,
I think the problem for me personally with it is, before we get on to talk about the silly season of films, I think the problem with it is that the initial films featured directors from all over. You had Indonesian directors, you
mm,
had British directors, you'd,
instead of one guy
Italian
carrying
is,
it.
and it does seem to be, and they all brought their own style. It's like, I don't know if you remember in VHS 2, there was this one um
I,
segment that was co-directed by Gareth Evans, who did the Raid films, and it was alongside an Indonesian director, and it was
mm,
completely batshit crazy. I mean, it really was sick and twisted,
oh,
but
jeez.
and you watch it and you feel a bit nauseous, but you know what? That was good. It excited the imagination. It had a very visceral effect. But now I just think, I like Shudder, don't get me wrong, they do good stuff sometimes, but I think with this that they're dragging out a franchise that's, I think, long past um, is all dried up really, and it's not really doing
Hmm.
anything new.
Yeah.
And I think trying to do this sort of found footage in the style of VHS, scratchy VHS films is, I don't think people are into that kind of nostalgia. So
Probably
anyhow,
not.
I got that off
Um,
my chest.
you might like Hell House LLC.
Yeah, I've seen that in the lineup on whenever I go into Shudder, desperate for something to watch, and I've seen
They're they're to number 4 now, and
hmm
I thought they were done, but it seemed like they're because they're so one location, they're able to
hmm
be a little more creative instead of
yeah
just we got to get bigger stars on. And it's like,
hmm
no, you don't have to worry about any bigger talents. You just got to play around with someone got trapped in
hmm
like a, kind of like a Halloween recreation place that's
hmm
haunted.
yeah
And they do a good job of making it look real instead of reliant on whether or not you're a paranormal guy or the
hmm
viewer's imagination. And that's how they were able to play around with some plot twists later on instead of,
yeah.
you know, do we have a big name who can carry this?
Oh, well, I think based on that recommendation, I'll check those out, definitely.
The music was definitely a big help because, like, I I I see so many times where people are using, there's nothing wrong in what kind of music you're using. It's just, but if you play it at
Yeah,
the wrong time, it can kill the scene's dramatic gravitas. And I think
abs yeah, totally agree.
they knew how to just kind of just insert it
hmm
and get in, get out, and good art design and everything
hmm
in the background. And the actors got it, so there wasn't any awkward moment where you're like, "What? How'd they get this job? I could do this."
Right. Okay. Well, I've just added LLC to my watch list.
Hell
So as
House
we were talking
LLC.
about, so
Yeah.
so I will definitely check that out. Right.
Mm.
Shall we get festive then? I know it feels a bit weird, sort of like late
Shingle
October.
jangle.
So I think I sent you the format by email. Basically,
Yes.
we'll talk a little bit about. I want to kind of get an idea of what Christmas is like for you, or what Christmas is like in the States, very briefly. And I'll give you a picture of mine, and then we'll look at some of those films that are a little bit left field. Um, and I've put it into three segments, which is a bit like Scrooge. So Ghosts of Christmas Past, Ghosts of Christmas Present, and by that I mean anything that's currently playing right now, because apparently there is one Christmas film doing the cinema rounds at the moment, Terrifier 3, which it's like, come on, you've got Art the Clown dressed as Santa Claus, and you're
Hmm.
releasing it in time for Halloween. I mean, yeah, I get why they did it, but come on, that could have been a real.
Good old
But
clowns, man.
I think as we discuss this, it'll become clear why they didn't do that. And then, so Christmas Present's going to be looking at some current films or maybe films of the last year or so that have just tried to subvert Christmas a little bit or just do something different. And then obviously we'll look at see if anything interesting's coming up that's caught our eye. Other than Red One, which does look fun, but I'll explain why for a reason. But there's got to be other things coming up as well. So, and so that's kind of the format. I've given some film title ideas, but I am happy for you to throw in your own titles that you say, hey, you need to think about this one, and we'll look at why that was such a salacious film or a groundbreaking film, depending on one's point of view. Um, so, so quickly then, just tell me, are you a fan of Christmas, Cam? And if so, how do you like to spend it?
I definitely like it undisturbed from work. We lately have been just we unwrap our gifts for each other earlier in the day, and then we move on like to
Hmm.
creating the feast for company that's coming over later. And I take it you love giving gifts to other people as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, same here. There's always the build up, isn't there? I mean, yeah, it seems to get earlier and earlier, I think the way things are, but yeah, we're a Christmas centric family. We celebrate, like I said, there's always the build up to it come like late November, early December. The tree
Hmm.
is up, the lights are up, Christmas music is playing, and I then have to decide, do I leave all the treats and goodies till nearer the time, or do I start in December? And so it'll be, shall I put the mulled wine on now, and shall I go down the shop and pick up a box of mince pies or make my own? Do you know what mince pies are, by the way?
I don't. I
Okay. Mince
just
pies are a traditional Christmas delicacy. It's not made of mince meat, so don't worry about that. Even though it's called mince meat, it's actually dried fruit that's soaked in sugar and citrus zest,
dark
and
raisins and brown
yeah,
cherries.
that sort of
Wow.
thing. And you can soak it in brandy, or you can be really pretentious like me and soak it in single malt. And then
Hmm.
you just make a little pastry cup, like a short crust sweet pastry. Fill the pastry with this mincemeat, bake it in the
How
oven.
can you
It's
have any pudding if you don't eat your meat?
mm. Simple.
Sorry, who was it?
I'm a rebel. I run an indie film.
No,
I run an indie film
I'm just kidding. I
review
had to ask
platform.
Pink Floyd.
I will go for pudding before meat every time. Good old Pink Floyd. So yeah, I mean, I love that time of year. It's especially since I'm met my wife, and they're now part of my family. I'm a part of theirs, and we cook a feast, we open presents, watch movies, watch Christmas specials. It's
Sweet.
yeah, it's a bit sort of, uh it is cheesy, but it's great. I love it. I never get enough of it. So and as we're both, film nerds, I beat you
Nerd.
to it. As we're both filmers, yeah, I love a good Christmas movie, and the cheesier the better. There's a lot of classics that I still enjoy. It's a Wonderful Life. We'll talk about the alternative version of that later. I'm sure you're a fan of such films. Miracle on 34th Street, Home Alone, the
Yep.
Soul Kind production of Santa Claus, the movie, all that stuff. Yeah, I love it. They got to come on. And maybe, go over to the special channel Christmas 24, where it is just back to back TV Christmas movies, most likely directed by Fred Olen Ray, who,
Jim Wynorski, all those
yeah, all those
Andrew
guys.
Stevens. Uh,
And and it's great. It's a fun season. It's a nice time to sort of I now I've heard that in the States, Christmas kind of there is that build up, and then after Christmas Day, that's it. It's kind of back to normal until New Year's. Um, I don't know if that's the case. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Here, Christmas kind of after Christmas Day, we kind of go into a bit of a lull. So I say lull. It's just that we never know what to do with ourselves. So we have like Boxing Day afterwards, which is also known
oh,
as St. Stephen's Day, marking the
oh,
first Christian martyr. I mean, we don't do
mm,
anything. It's a day that we have off from work. It's a bank
gotcha.
holiday, if you like, where if we couldn't see family, whatever family we didn't get to see on Christmas Day, we go and see them on Boxing Day. And then we get a couple more bank holidays in between. And then most businesses close down until after New Year's, and only the retail hospitality industries tend to sort of stay open. But all the
Mm,
businesses, the education institutions, they tend to shut down for a couple of weeks. So, and if their employers are as generous as mine, then they pay for you to have that time off.
PTO, perfect.
So, how is that in the States? Do you do much the same thing, or is it after Christmas Day, it's back to business as usual?
You know, this is the problem. They almost all seem to vary,
Hmm.
so there's really no telling what you're gonna get until it's kind of too late. Uh,
Hmm.
I think the biggest issue is sometimes they like to take more days off, and it's like, oh, that's a week I could be actually working,
Hmm.
because bills are coming up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me personally, I've almost always encountered someone who doesn't want it to take off, and it's like, no, I'm taking off because I'm not coming in on during the holidays, even with the
Yeah.
holiday pay.
Hmm.
Thanksgiving is kind of really just the one I can't miss now. I'm like, okay, I think we just value that even more and more. Like it's
Hmm.
gotten better as it's gone on. You want to be part of a feast and remind everybody why your family. Well, Christmas is just a good
Hmm.
example of just prep for the new year and get everybody excited for, even if you don't believe in doing resolutions, just hey, you're looking forward to the next year, what you
Yes.
can do better.
Hmm. Absolutely. So when it comes to Christmas movies, then what floats your boat?
You know, it is funny, people go with the unofficial ones like Lethal Weapon, Gremlins, and Die Hard, but now it's even funnier seeing the copycats of those movies. It's like, so here's a clone of a clone that's also
Yeah.
set at Christmas. And uh, I do have some unofficial ones. I cheated a bit because there's some hysterical uh, holiday specials of everything
Hmm.
from some of your favorite cop show and anthology shows to
Hmm.
something like the Muppets. But there's plenty of unofficial ones.
Yeah.
Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas is kind of a cult hit for the Jim
Hmm.
Henson crowd. There's robbery movies like The Ref. There's dark comedies like American Psycho. There's the Psych TV show and its various movies often have a lot of Christmas episodes. Then there's
Hmm.
dystopias like Brazil.
Yeah.
And you told me about Violent Night, and I'm sure other people know that Shane Black likes to have movies set at Christmas. There's The Holiday with Queen Latifah, but then you got Silent Night 2 and 5 and its remake that are Christmas, and Mixed Nuts is either on Christmas or
Yeah.
New Year's, and that's kind of a Steve Martin movie that
I, I know
never.
mixed nuts. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, it kind of like Assault on Precinct 13 and
Hmm.
Strange Days and even Fruitvale Station. They're movies that are kind of an acquired taste, but it's just so funnier when you see all these other movies. You're like, yeah, that's kind of Christmassy. It's just it's dark, so no one wants to talk about it. But then 13 Slays Till Xmas, Nothing Like the Holidays, which is a fun Latino
Yeah.
dramedy, and then John Frankenheimer's Dead Bang, which is a cops and robbers movie, and then Stallone's ego-driven Cobra and The
Hmm.
Shining. You're just like Bridget Jones' Diary. Anything can be set at Christmas, really, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings has people fighting in the snow. I guess that's Christmas because there's all this Christian music playing. I don't Krampus,
Sure.
The
I was going to
Apartment.
say, sure you don't mean Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh well, so there you go. Yeah, perfect. Uh, LA Confidential has a bunch of fighting while on Christmas Eve by all the crooked cops. So I
Now,
guess, yeah.
I read at the time that film came out that was actually much of the film was based on little individual incidents and people that happened around that time, and that Bloody Christmas was actually a real event. In it was sort of the Rodney King of its day, wasn't it? In that,
I kind of heard a bit of that
yeah,
it's which
it's
is
known
kind
as
of
Bloody
even
Christmas, wasn't it?
bloody Christmas, though, which is
Yeah,
why it's brilliant because just like how you see them encountering asshole versions of real life celebrities, it's just kind of a good way of complimenting the gritty lifestyle is like
hmm,
just showing you the systematic problems. It's like it's hard for any of the good cops to do any work when everybody in the department is misbehaving. This
yeah,
systematic
exactly.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned LA Confidential because I did watch that recently. I mean, I think I know that film off the top of off the top of
Oh
my
wow.
head. I've seen it so many times. I think it's because I like the time it's set in. I think it's a very clever story.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you think about one or two of the cast members, they all deliver outstanding performances.
Hmm.
But it's when those two Australians get together, Russell Crowe and Guy Pearce, to sort of get behind the real Night Owl, the real reason for the Night Owl murders. Another based on a true story
Another real
incident.
life cold
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
When those two get together, the film really picks up a pace and you think, my God, these two are brilliant. And at the time
Yes.
you think these two are going to be big stars. And of course, we now know where they are, both doing very well with their
There you go.
careers.
It's
But
even funnier how a
mm,
heist often configures in so many of these movies. or a
Yes.
disaster elements like Poseidon Adventure, Strange Days, Money Train, the original Ocean's 11, and then you get goofy slashers like by Canon Films like Don't Open Till Christmas and New Year's Evil,
Yeah.
and even chick
New
flicks like
Year's
Waiting to
Evil. Love it.
Exhale, the
Yeah.
gangster movie with DMX Belly, and you're just like, yeah, I guess that's as Christmassy as you're gonna get.
Well, like you, I'm quite varied. I will happily sit and watch Home Alone. I will watch Miracle
There
on
you go.
34th Street, and then I might watch something like Silent Night, Deadly Night. Not straight after not one after the other. Don't get me wrong. That would be strange. Oh, this is so nice. He
Isn't
is Father.
everything
He
strange
is
though?
Father Christmas. Right, Silent Night, Deadly Night. A poor kid with PTSD when he turns 18 loses his shit and kills everybody.
Yeah, not to
Yes.
mention sees his mother getting assaulted and his
Yeah.
dad drunk. Yeah, it's a really rough movie to watch at first because
Yeah.
you're not ready for the shock value,
No.
and then near the end you start having fun because of the actors hamming it up. But yeah, it is one of those is like, okay, it's a movie, guys. Just fast forward to the amusing shit in the
Hmm.
last chapter and avoid.
Yeah. Well, let's go back in time then. Ghosts of Christmas Past, movies from
Mm.
yesteryear that kind of shook the notion of what is a Christmas movie. I think the icing on the cake, as you mentioned before, is obviously Die Hard. Die Hard is one of those movies that didn't start out intending to be a Christmas movie. It was released in the
Oh,
UK here.
correction, correction.
Sorry?
So Joel Silver and the writer have come
Yeah.
out saying they actually wanted it to be played every Christmas.
Really? Because
Yeah.
it came out in the UK
Yeah, no,
in
I
summer of
get that.
'89. Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
But so Shane Black actually came up with the title.
Yeah.
He didn't write the rest of the movie because he had
No.
some other commitments and everything, but
Yeah.
it's just so funny how that's why they got the, uh in Christmas music played. They have it
Hmm.
at the Christmas party. But yeah, it was one of those. It's kind of a half and half. Like you can play it at any time of the year, but at the same time, it took a while
Hmm.
for like HBO reshowings to make it clear that there's a amusing riff on what spoiled people do at Christmas time.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. And if you watch it, yeah, everything is in there. Everything is in there that makes it a Christmas movie to the point where I think most people who used to watch it whenever they felt like it now say
It's
it's
ruining it for
wrong.
them now.
It's wrong to watch it any other time. But I mean, Die Hard, one of the best action films ever made, according to Graham Yost, writer of Speed and a few others. I think
Hmm.
generally
It's a
highly
shame that
regarded.
Speed didn't have a Christmas party in there somewhere.
Yeah, well, Speed 2 could have done one on a Christmas party on a boat,
Oh,
but
that would have been fun. Um,
but
yeah. So long story short,
yeah,
it seems like when you want a Christmas movie, you do kind of want a good just like riff on something.
yeah.
Grumpy Cat is a total the official Grumpy Cat movie,
Hmm.
which not only had the audacity to be a Lifetime movie and have
Hmm.
even break the fourth wall by having Aubrey Plaza in her voice
Hmm.
booth, like teasing the camera, saying, "Why are you in here? I'm doing the voice of the cat." Is basically both a Home Alone and a Die Hard in a Christmas mall, shopping mall on Christmas Day spoof,
Oh, wow.
and it's way more watchable and dorky than it has any right to be. But it's just funny because you're just like, at least this movie, which was aimed at kids, had some humor for adults because it had some of the SpongeBob guys working on it.
Yeah,
Uh, at least again, they were able to go there and get in, get out, and but Die Hard is kind of the one that yes, that you see all these other movies like Bait
yeah,
and even Enemy of the State to start set
yeah,
during
yeah,
Christmas, and
yeah,
you're just guffawing because it's the one where I mean the Eurotrash villains
yeah,
make fun of just you Americans believe in this kind of thing and everything because
yeah,
we're trying to get rich and people think we're terrorists. We're just a
yeah.
bunch of thieves who have some soldier commando background.
And we're just
Uh,
going to use this opportunity. Yeah, exactly. And the irony being actually that, quite the opposite. Germany is a country that celebrates Christmas very, very well. You know? So
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. Like
yeah,
he is a total contrarian of what you would expect him to be, what, what a
absolutely.
German terrorist would actually be. He has no standards. Just
Yeah.
getting in, getting rich.
But look, pre Die Hard, there were quite a few films that came out in amongst the usual run of seasonal goodwill and happy endings that really
Yes.
turned the notion of Christmas on its head. And I think
Oh my
the
word.
most groundbreaking one was Black Christmas,
Hmm.
which basically started the whole slasher movie thing. People credit Halloween for, being the like, oh, you've started this whole subgenre of horror slasher films, killer stalking. But no, actually, it's all came down to Bob Clark's Black Christmas, and
Oh,
yeah. Well, I don't know if you heard of Bob Clark. He's a Canadian
yeah,
filmmaker.
no,
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was like Black Christmas, like that was the one that made people
yeah.
change their management style, like their how they pitch a movie with a holiday
Well,
on
I don't know how they pitched it. I think at the time they just said, look, let's make a film called Black Christmas. Let's set it in a sorority house full of,
it.
young, attractive people, and let's just have somebody go in there
Sure.
and kill them all. I would
Someone's got to do
imagine
it.
back in the days of the 25 word or less pitch, I would imagine that's how that went.
How an elevator pitch went. Yeah, perfect.
But I revisited that film in anticipation of this chat, and I was surprised by a few things. One, it still holds up, and the two remakes that followed are not a patch on it, I don't
Didn't
think.
they do a third remake as well?
They did two. Oh, well, they might have done. There was one in 2006, which I think
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
Michelle Trachtenberg from Buffy in there, and then
Hmm.
the one in 2019, which didn't do that well. I think people
That's
went,
what I'm thinking of.
"What the hell is this?" You get when you look at films, when you look at horror films made in the 70s, they have that sort of grainy, uncomfortable feel. It sets the
Hmm.
atmosphere really well. But the other thing that surprised me was I didn't realize that this was the same Bob Clark who did Porky's 1 and 2. So I thought,
Yeah.
God, and also did one of my favorite films that nobody really talks about much, Turk 182,
Uh,
with Timothy Hutton and Robert
he,
Urich.
and
That
he's
was
gone
my
on to have a very prolific TV career, but yeah,
yeah.
he's always the guy who just
Mm,
like he would do the cheap comedy that is very quotable and
hmm
people are like so he's kind of a unsung talent. Like
yeah.
people know the name, but if it's not for a comedy or horror,
Hmm
then it's for horror comedy. It's a weird mashup. It's wild.
absolutely. But as I was saying earlier, Black Christmas did set up the template for the slashers that followed. So you have got a sorority house. Think
Hmm.
sorority babes at the Slime Ballerama. Think,
Oh my God, the Come Tao Empire
yeah,
Punchers. Yeah.
exactly. So you've got a sorority house, you've got teenagers, or you've got young, attractive people, you've got a psycho killer, and you've got, sort of like cops coming to the rest, the usual thing, and finding that they're just completely outmatched. But if you go back and watch it, you can see all the tropes are there. This was the one that really kind of started it all. And I think everyone else just thought, hey, this is actually quite good.
We can make money.
We can make money. We can do our own thing. I think John Carpenter came along and said, yeah, this is quite good. Hold my beer. And then
Right. That's why he doesn't
you've
sell
got
in
Halloween.
precinct 13 and
That's
Halloween. Yeah.
But what's interesting is revisiting some of the press about it. I think obviously it was one of those films that got slated. It didn't resonate with the critics. I think it did okay at the box office. It didn't break any
Hmm.
records, but it did well. It was a small
Something like that.
independent
Yeah.
Canadian film, but it did well. I think it did get some attention because it had to change titles in a couple of
Hmm.
places to take the Christmas reference away. Don't think
Ah,
people like the idea of teenagers being slaughtered at, you know, near Christmas, and I can't blame them. It was all the bad things that always go on in the world. Who wants to be reminded of death and destruction during the holiday season? But they changed the title a couple of times. But I did read somewhere that there was a bit of controversy. It was going to be aired on television one night, and
ah,
I think the Florida governor had to cancel it because there was a double murder at a sorority house. And they
oh,
said, it's
jeez.
probably a bit in bad taste to show this at the same time. I don't know if they ever managed to pull the film, but I certainly think there was some
Attempts.
backlash, yeah, to the fact that this was going to be screened around about the time this horrible thing happened.
Mm.
And And film has a history of that, doesn't it? Where sometimes some films just hit a little too hard.
Hmm.
So, talking to David Weiner, 30 odd years ago, Natural Born Killers was banned in the UK because it was too close to a school, a school shooting here. One of the very rare instances of school
Jeez.
shootings that we have. I mean, very rare.
Takes one to ruin it for everybody.
Exactly. Not that I, to be honest, where that film's concerned, not that I mind. It just didn't
No,
fit
I know
well
what
with
you
me.
mean.
Yeah.
It's I hate to get over socially political, but it's also kind
Mm.
of ridiculous. Like people like to make fun of Canada, and it's like, well, what does Canada do wrong? They do a lot of things right. So
Absolutely.
like
You look at all the talent that comes out of Canada. I mean,
talent, but like even better, like they got very strict laws and everything, affordable
mhm,
health care. Like what?
absolutely.
Why would I hate on them?
Yeah. Jealousy. I think that's what it comes down to, jealousy.
Probably, I guess. Yeah.
So I don't know. Is Black Christmas one that you've seen? You obviously know something
I've
about it.
I've only seen parts of it, but
Mhm.
I get the general gist on that. Hey, let's do a wacky premise like this and have
Yeah.
fun with it.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, you don't really get as much of that now. You get kind of yeah, people going too far or not knowing what they want to make of something, and it's
Yeah.
like yeah, just like if you're gonna have a misbehaving babysitter or someone playing Skippy at school, it's like
Yeah.
just have a wacky premise where just shenanigans happen at again a
Hmm.
sorority or a cabin,
Yeah.
and
A
there's some
cabin in the woods.
dark comedy mixed with slash,
Yeah.
and I think that's why Clark's legacy has lived on. Is just
Hmm.
Hollywood people like him and they like working with him, and a lot of his movies were kind of that antenna channel kind of word of mouth movie. So
Hmm.
it is interesting how this has all come about.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
the other title that obviously you touched on it earlier. We touched on it earlier, of course. The other title that's sort of about 10 years later that really kind of now this one did really cause an outrage. And I
mm,
remember actually reading about this in film review magazines because we didn't have social media back in the 80s, but
it wasn't a thing.
was Silent Night, Deadly Night. Of course, we mentioned
Oh,
that.
jeez.
It's a classic 80s slasher in that, and not in that you have just someone who decides to go on a killing spree, but it's so many of those films where the background of the killer is revealed to be someone who's had horrific PTSD as a
Hmm.
result of some terrible event. And I think in this case, it was seeing his mum be basically sexually assaulted and killed, and his father died, and all these, and then being raised in a orphanage and a convent with a mother superior and a Santa
Yeah,
who's,
Nurse Ratchet equivalent.
all these sadistic figures and a sadistic Santa Claus figure that when he gets to adulthood just causes him to flip, and then he goes.
That film really gets nutty near the end when you
Mm.
see a SWAT team rush in. Just-
Yeah. It is a nutty film, but it's fun, not in a ooh, I'm enjoying all these killings kind of way, but it's
no.
fun in the sense that you go through quite a range of emotions from,
Hmm.
from like a bit of, okay, yeah, that was a fun, gnarly kill to sort of almost feeling a bit of sympathy for this guy. It was quite a,
Yes.
it's one of those low budget films with many levels. I think you can draw from it what you will. And I like the fact
Yes.
that it invites you to do that, and they carry that through in the films that followed. I think is it
Then they get
Silent
into
Night, Deadly Night?
bugs. Then they get
Yeah,
into a toy maker. Yeah.
yeah. But I think in the third film they really kind of explore Billy's character a bit more. So, but this was controversial. I don't know if you remember reading, if you read about this, but
I have,
oh,
and
there
it's
was
just like,
such an outrage,
but you want to
such
talk
an out.
double standards. You're just like, okay, so Mickey Rooney is an actor who just
Yeah,
randomly was on a talk show talking smack about it. Then no one wants to work with him, so he ends up
yeah.
in a brief role in part five. You're like, okay, contrarian.
but God, there there protests? Or there people waving banners, if I
Yeah,
remember rightly? How dare
post
you?
Nancy Reagan, but
Yeah.
before Tipper Gore came in asking for music to have a explicit
Hmm.
label on it. This was back when people would force your Saturday morning cartoons to do drug
Hmm.
PSAs.
Yeah.
Drugs are bad. Okay. Yeah, it's just that had that whole just kind of, unless it was just something like it kind of, you see it echoed in the 2000s, and
Hmm.
then the Federal Communications, the FCC, finally just kind of stops complaining because no one really cares anymore. But for a while, everyone was like, "Oh, TV's too violent." I'm like, "It's after 9, but some places want it to be after 10." And it's like,
Hmm.
but yet people are still watching this in reruns or just saying, "Oh, just put the kids to bed." It's like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what it should have been. Put the kids to
Yes.
bed. They're gonna watch it when they're teens, and they'll
Hmm.
be of a sound mind as opposed to a, you know, freaked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But
yeah, it goes back to even just as far back as stuff like when that one gunman tried to kill Ronald Reagan by
hmm
watching Taxi Driver like over 40 times. And you're like, well, he, that awful person was looking for inspiration.
yeah, to do something, and he did it to impress Jodie Foster, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was a stalker of, yeah, Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Which,
okay.
if you ever want proof positive that he was not mentally all there, I mean, if you think Jodie Foster's going to impress that you tried to shoot the president, um,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
it's
but it's
crazy.
interesting that, and it's reflective of the times because the 80s was very much a paranoid time in the
Oh,
wake
totally.
of independent film, not just being
Hmm.
putting titles like that out there, but these were films that were coming into our homes via VHS, which meant
Yes.
that, if you and it wasn't really well regulated back then. You had a lot
Hmm.
of, as David Weiner describes them, mom and pop, or we call them mum and dad, video, video rental stores. All these little private little shops you go into, and
Yes.
they say, "Look, I know we're not supposed to rent you, sorority bays at the Slime Bowlerama, but we know your mum, so you take that kid. Go on, go enjoy yourself."
Go on.
Yeah. And so they were worried about, I suppose they were worried about this unnecessarily so, about this creeping influence of violent films. And if you
It's more
attach,
common than you think.
yeah,
There's always someone who just thinks, well, and it's always an irony when someone who's outlawing it, more often than not, is often
mm,
found to be possessing the very thing that they're banning. So it's
probably,
always
yeah.
just funny just when you just see this kind of material, and
Hmm.
people always wonder why the celebrities themselves are shy about this. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
because you kind of told me I sucked, for, or damned me, on a
Yeah.
televangelist network for something that, you know,
So
no
growing up,
one else.
yeah. Sorry, go on.
Oh, it's just funny. Just like
Yeah.
when you've been pulled, shushed or damned for being
Hmm.
in something, you kind of don't want to talk about it, even though other people said they didn't have a problem with it. And Uh, so I applaud people for wanting to validate it. I think Shout
Hmm.
Factory just came out with another remaster of these movies with
Yes.
more special features. So it's just
Hmm.
like, yeah,
Well, I think we're a little bit more, well, I say we're a little bit more calmer, and we understand the nuance of these things. But
and you've
then,
been for the video nasties too, so
yeah, I mean, we've been through the video nasties. I still actually, there's films from that I still can't watch because, and it must be because of the impression they left on me as a teenager. But
eh,
I'm getting off track. I think we understand now that Silent Night, Deadly Night is not designed to subvert Christmas. It's just a slasher
right.
film. It's one of those holiday films like Halloween, uh, where it's designed to take a moment that everybody is joyful and happy and say, let's just turn it on its head just for a bit of fun. It's just a
This
bit of
man
fun.
had the
It's
worst
a
possible time ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a ride, folks. Don't worry about it. There's still eggnog and sweets and mince pies. Yeah, threw that in there. And steamed Christmas puddings waiting for you at the end of it. So don't worry. But
Mhm.
were there any films from that era that, especially Christmas films, that kind of caught your attention, made you sit up and take notice?
I would definitely do the Rankin Bass, but I really was I would watch it at any time of the year, a lot of those movies,
Hmm.
because I wanted to know how did you make these, out of clay, just
Hmm.
these moving animations rather than, whatever
Hmm.
the material was. And I just we've done a special on it already, but I just love looking at older cartoons and seeing how people just complain about the rights and where to find it and everything. I was
Hmm.
always just the kind of guy who wanted to just kind of honor it. Just
Hmm.
like, see, these guys didn't work in any big studio. They
Hmm.
made something because they knew how to, and then they hired outside help from Japan. And like you, I had seen my share of people, comedians would almost always have like a special TV special that
Yeah.
would recirculate that had, I think there was one with Whoopi Goldberg, there was another with Kelsey Grammer, and it was almost
Hmm.
always another take on the 34th Street.
Yeah.
The worst ones though were probably when there was like a loose sequel to like It's a Wonderful Life, like if
Hmm.
Clarence grew up, it had one of the Carradine brothers, and it was a perfect example of just don't mess with the original. Just
Well, we'll touch on that in a minute when we will bring ourselves up to the present. But do you know there's one Christmas special or holiday special that nobody likes to, well, some people like to talk about it,
Star
but
Wars
is
Holiday Special.
yeah, the Star Wars holiday special. The one thing that is to this day people behind the scenes denied it ever happened, but yet the evidence is
I
there.
have other pod friends who joke. I mean, I take it you've heard of the Disturbance in the Force documentary that's out now,
Yes.
but it is so funny how
Yeah, I think we
uh
went to see that actually at the
oh sweet.
cinema. Yeah.
I find it funny how some people joke that's the only Star Wars movie that won't be tampered with.
Oh, so true, so true. Because nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot barge pole. Nobody wants to admit it exists.
Riff Tracks did a
Yeah,
commentary of it and they didn't get any legal feedback. Everyone's like, okay, you're drawing attention to this stuff we don't want to even acknowledge. So, okay,
yeah.
cool.
And if you want proof positive, nobody wants to acknowledge it. Just go onto the Disney Channel, click on the Star Wars bit, and you'll see every incarnation
One
of the Star Wars
there,
saga except that one. But
yeah.
yes, that's the holiday special that really creeps people out that nobody likes to revisit.
Wookiee porn.
But do you know what? Uh, I think what's nice about films in general, and even back then, yes, there were films that came out like Black Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Um, but these were alongside holiday favorites. So the Soul Kinds did their own version of Santa Claus the movie. Richard
Ah,
Donner
nice.
turned the Scrooge story on its head with Scrooge and Bill Murray in the title role. But it did open the way for more anarchic sort of Christmas fun.
Hmm.
So I mentioned Scrooge. I think it's still a film I go back and watch time and time again. If
It's
nothing
funny
else,
how that one took a while to kind of
mm,
catch on. I was actually late to the party on that one, and I thought it was
yeah.
fine, but it was so funny. It's like then I encounter other family members who are like, "Oh yeah, I like that movie." I'm like, "I had
Yeah.
no idea you'd seen that." So it is kind of a people like to almost treat it as kind of a video nasty, dare I say, just where you're like, it's harmless. It's a dark comedy, and
Yeah.
like typical Charles Dickens fashions, he finds
Hmm.
out he's an asshole, and
Yeah.
you laugh, darkly comedic, but it's really funny seeing what critics who you thought would have liked it.
Hmm.
And then I look at the critics who did like it, I'm like, oh wow, they're usually grumpy. They loved this movie. So it's just, yeah, it's just like, wow,
Well,
okay.
for one, if for no other reason, you've got Carol Kane in there whacking Bill Murray with an iron.
She's wonderful.
She,
That
she's
woman is a godsend.
she really is. She's
Oh,
great. I love Carol Kane. But like I said, it opened the door to more anarchic, subversive Christmas films, and I think from of that particular era, I mean, we're not going to go 80s, 90s, 2000s, but of that era, and it said, look, it's okay to do something a little bit different, and that was. a family favorite
Mhm.
of ours, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It was the
The
one that actually said
final speech.
yeah, you can do too much Christmas, and sometimes family Christmases aren't fun. But it said, we'll
Mhm.
take that notion and then we're just going to have a lot of fun with it. Chevy Chase doing his thing, uh, you know,
Yep.
Randy Quaid before he went off the reservation, really stealing the show. It's,
That's
you
kind of
know,
the sad thing too, having to remind people is like, hey, we used to really not care what celebrities were like because they were able to contain themselves
yeah.
versus now we got ones where like, I don't want to even bring that guy up, How'd
But
we get here again? Yeah.
yeah. But exactly, exactly. I mean, you could see that of so many people. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still watch James Woods films, mostly guilt-free. And
Oh,
if I want to
absolutely.
do that, I'll watch
You
Bestseller,
can't,
I'll
you have
watch True
to.
Believer. Yeah, you have to.
It,
Salvador, you go back and you think,
Hitchcock's is a terrible guy, but I'm still gonna watch his classics because
absolutely.
there's cultural merit to them
Yeah.
versus I'm seeing a guy, I can understand if it's a
Hmm.
movie that's been done to death. Like I see a lot of shit talkers of something like, I don't know, Silence of the Lambs, Basic Instinct or Alien, but
Hmm.
it's kind of because they've seen too many of the rip-off movies rather than the movie that inspired it. And I get it, like
Possibly, although in the case of Basic Instinct, I think that really was, to quote Bill Hicks, a piece of shit. Although, if you listen to Bill Hicks's routine, there's a very different reason why he doesn't like that film.
I'll have concurred because like Paul Verhoeven's best stuff is actually in his Dutch,
Yeah.
country, the Netherlands. So it's funny seeing how filmmakers from other countries get in and
Hmm.
have success elsewhere, and you're like, then you put people on the spot saying you have seen this or that, and you're like,
Yeah.
no, I didn't know they did anything outside of America. And yeah, it's
Uh, well, look. So what we've seen is we've seen some films that have kind of shaken up the notion of what constitutes a Christmas story. That the doors have been opened for some more anarchic fun and for, holiday set action, holiday set
you got to
horror,
dig for some of them
drama. Yeah.
too.
Yeah, but I think as with the explosion of VHS and with the increase in cable television, the introduction of satellite television, you now have channels dedicated to all kinds of Christmas movies,
Yes.
all various
Oh my
levels of
God.
fun and tension, excitement. So that's going to bring us up to Christmas Present. Let's look at the Ghost of Christmas Present is going to pay us a visit now. And
I'm just kidding.
oh, he's the fun one. Come in and know me better, man. But so just looking at the films of the last year or so, actually, there's one thing I want to bring to your attention, and I don't know if you've seen it. Probably not, because it's a very UK thing. I mentioned earlier Silent Night, Deadly Night causing an absolute uproar for its time. There is one other very,
Uh,
very, very, very short film that has caused probably the same, if not more uproar.
are you
And
kidding
believe it or
me?
not, no, I'm not actually. And believe it or not, it's an ad. It's a TV ad.
It's a
Because
TV ad
yeah,
where they
so
went
here in the
bananas.
UK, I'm sure you have it in the US as well, but here in the UK, a lot of these sort of big department stores, retail outlets, they compete to have the ultimate Christmas ad.
Hmm.
John Lewis is one such department store that is currently leading the trend, in terms of, and it's very sweet, it's very lovely, but but some supermarket chains do really well, others don't because they dare to challenge the notion of Christmas by, I don't know, having a family of color celebrating Christmas. How dare you?
Ah, it's
You
Lord.
know. But this one in particular, I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you and show you it because I think it needs to be seen to be believed.
So it's an ad for Ted Lasso with Hannah Waddingham tearing the parts. Oh, totally different gentleman.
Yeah.
Okay. Different celebrity entertaining everybody. Doing mimes, impressions, some line. Can't tell if that's Rose Byrne or. Okay. Is it because of there's a burning?
I'll tell you in a minute.
I'm watching, I'm watching. Okay. Switch.
This Christmas, do only
Confetti.
what you love.
Love Christmas. Okay.
Yeah.
I love Hannah. There was actually a really good Ted Lasso Christmas special they did.
Oh, that
Right?
advert created such an uproar for two reasons. One, one because there was an outtake from that featured in the ad that was originally sent out, in which it looked like they were burning during that paper hat burning exercise. There was some
Oh,
red and silver and green being burnt, and people complained because it said it looks like she's burning the Palestinian flag.
oh my
Which, to be, yeah,
word.
but it was a real blink and you'll miss it moment. So there was that outrage, but that's nothing, Cam. That's nothing compared to the outrage about the very notion this advert was saying that, you don't have to have Christmas parties and play games. You
It
don't have to
doesn't
build
have to
gingerbread
be
houses.
the way you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to play Elf on a Shelf. You can, get a
Elf on a
baseball bat and
shelf.
hit the bloody thing over,
Confetti. Yeah. This
exactly.
is
Yeah, it's just it was saying, but it was trying to say, do your Christmas, do Christmas however you want, and whatever you do, M&S, Marks and Spencers, which is a
that's how hollow
department
we
store outlet.
are.
Yeah,
The bigger
but
picture be damned.
but people were outraged because they said that this was clearly a movement by the woke liberati,
Oh
liberal
my
Illuminati,
word.
trying to subvert and undermine Christmas. When
And
actually,
they keep, to quote Diego Montoya, you keep using that word. I don't think you know what it means. It's just like, guys, oh my
but yeah,
goodness.
I don't think anything really
Eh,
matches the outrage that this 1 minute, 21-minute ad uh,
I've had
caused.
to even remind people, like, when they say, "Oh, it's just people on the internet." I'm like, it's not just one, two, a dozen.
Yeah.
It's millions
Mm.
resharing these nasty memes and critiques. So that's the other thing too, is like it used to be you hear people bitch, but now when you have the equivalent of a lynch mob and
Hmm.
just spreading hurtful stuff, like
Hmm.
wildfire, it's like,
Yeah.
well, we're beyond this. We're barbarians.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, exactly. And it just seems to be that everybody's looking to draw ire from something that is just a little bit different.
Mhm.
I mean, you could, if you were so inclined, you could take that ad and take it apart for all sorts of different reasons. Artistically, if you want to call some ads are artistic, some aren't.
How
You could,
many are gonna just look at that chain letter, but not actually watch the actual videos? Like, so you're joining a mafia.
oh yeah,
You haven't
exactly.
even seen the thing,
Yeah.
and you're bitching about it.
And I have to wonder as well, like with films like Silent Night, Deadly Night, Black Christmas, and all those other
Hmm
films that followed, and the recent run of films as well, where people seem to think, "What are you doing here?" Um, it's like the people who don't want to admit that Die Hard is a Christmas movie because of its violent nature. You say violence in Christmas. How dare
Or
you?
they don't do unofficial movies. Then
Hmm.
you even see people who do the whole, like, I don't like these kinds of movies. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, just like any good movie, you don't have to be necessarily a fan of the genre
Hmm.
to admit it's a good movie.
Yeah. But the reaction to this kind of reminds me of my wife introduced me to this film, and it kind of outraged me at the beginning because I just thought I would hate to live with these people. It was Christmas with the Cranks, where they always
That's
did
a
this
good example. Yeah.
where they always want to do this wonderful Christmas, then they decide to do something different, and everybody just completely loses their shit.
Oh, they
And
lose it all right. Yeah.
and I like the idea that it challenged that notion of, hey, you know what? Not everybody has to do this all the time,
Hmm
and you shouldn't really put on people to say this is what Christmas is. You must follow
Do
this.
as I say.
Yeah.
Blah, blah,
I
blah.
mean, it turns out nice at the end, they do something quite sweet, and we all like a happy ending. But it's funny, I look
No,
at Christmas
man, we
with
like it to be miserable. I'm just kidding.
really, I thought you were serious.
I'm kidding.
But you look at Christmas with the Cranks, and I think it's interesting that the reaction of the people in that film, the way that it's played, the way it's written,
Hmm.
mirrors the reaction that people had to that ad.
To think that this predates all the Stans and
Yeah.
Karens of the world.
hmm Exactly. Exactly. And I'm
We
just
all had that
thinking,
annoying neighbor. In fact, I like a lot of shows, not just like Psych, but
yeah,
also even Trailer Park Boys,
yeah.
which is a Canadian mockumentary, as well as even shows like
hmm
the Closer and oh, what's the other one? Homicide, Life on the Street, which is kind of a
Yeah.
cousin of The Wire. They would have some
hmm
Christmas episodes, and they would show people finding their most humanity on the
Yeah.
worst possible day, where they
hmm
don't have a life. They're technically working over the holidays
hmm
while protecting a witness or
Yeah.
something, or and one of them they literally have like a Thanksgiving feast with a fugitive still chained to
hmm
their trailer park. It's just funny. It's just like, yeah, I'm keeping you safe. Well, but I'll let you come over here just this once to, say grace. And it's just you need to just kind of show how if
hmm
you think I wonder what it's like when you see dysfunctional people watch fiction and if they see any truth in themselves.
Yeah.
Because you kind of get that with something like The Purge, which
hmm
is kind of an anti-capitalistic,
Yeah.
movie
hmm
series, which you don't see too many Nazis talking about it because they either feel outed by such a movie, and then people who like it or don't like it still talk about it because there's a lot of intriguing ideas just
hmm
showing how this is disintegration of society while making it a fun action sci-fi horror mashup. So
Yeah.
it's funny how like all these movies have kind of that we've just name dropped,
hmm
they are just already just above average movies that use social commentary in them
Yeah.
to make a bigger picture.
hmm
But the whole is this or is this not is kind of already just showing how, the day is young. You're not the
Yeah.
crowd who even wants just to decipher and think about this longer.
hmm
Yeah,
No, totally
it's
agree. And the silence from some people on those films is can be quite telling. I
it's
mean,
like they are
it could be
complicit.
yeah, it could be a little bit of guilt actually. It could be because
Yeah.
I see. I mean, we're going off topic a little bit, but I'll just say this in that whenever there's a horrific incident, or whether it's a mass shooting or whether it's a brutal
Yeah.
killing, like recently we had in this country we had uh three children brutally murdered by this kid.
Mm,
Well, he's an adult now. He's turned 18, but he was a kid at the time. He was
I'm
17.
sorry.
And these at a Taylor Swift sort of themed event, and the outrage that poured from people, the things
Mm,
they wanted to do to this person, it's worse than barbaric what you imagine, because you do. That is your primal instinct. Then I think when you calm down, you say, well, no, we have a justice system. Let that justice system
right.
process this
There's a
person.
reason being a
Yeah,
vigilante doesn't solve the problem
exactly.
because now
And
you're making murder legal. Yeah.
yeah, and I think, people who watch The Purge probably, you know, those people who watched it and thought, okay, this resonates with me and I don't like it because I wouldn't
They're
normally
already
condone
taking they're
that.
taking every other procedural out of context.
Yeah,
But then it goes all kinds of ways. Like
yeah,
you'll see politicians who hate a political drama because it draws, you know, it makes people actually question them and ask them a logical question.
hmm
Then you get even this is probably the funniest is when you see people say, I want to be just like that gangster in that fiction. It's like, well, you need to show that viewpoint because you're painting a bigger
yeah,
picture. And if an actual criminal is seeing some accuracy in it, that's telling just as
hmm
much as it is people saying, oh, that's too violent. What if my kid wants to be a gangster?
yeah,
It's like, well, maybe you can be a good parent instead of getting angry that a show is
hmm
giving he or she naughty ideas, on selling drugs or whatever. It's so yes, it is funny how when you see some of these apocalyptic or dystopia movies that are, having a bigger critique, just showing
hmm
that, hey, one day out of the year annually, murder has been legalized,
yeah,
and so And half the time, the people preying on each other are neighbors who can never stand
Hmm.
each other's guts,
Hmm.
or cops who got a vendetta, or criminal. In the last one, ranch hands who
Hmm.
are tired of all the racism of their clients and
Yep.
gonna take over the ranch. So it is
Hmm.
funny how it's like, well, it's just painting a bigger picture. It's like if I give you an invitation and show how you're willing to join a mob,
Hmm.
this we're going somewhere with this message, just showing how, uh, you know, if you've had these naughty urges at one point or another, you might be a serial killer. And again, I get it. Not everybody wants to have a conversation because they're afraid of getting there. They're afraid of getting
Hmm.
deep.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I don't know what to tell you other than maybe just don't watch anything and if you don't like these movies, but you think there are some intriguing concepts and it's not well executed, I
Hmm.
get that. But this even goes back to where we are right now with a
Hmm.
movie. When a movie comes out, without fail, it takes about a year for the dust to settle and tell apart
Hmm.
who legit didn't care for it versus who were all the Nazi trolls. Like I'm sure you saw it with the last few Terminators and the last Indiana Jones. It took a
Yes.
year to figure out who legit thought it was an unneeded sequel, who thought it was
Hmm.
a cool, you know, finish to the series after many dreaded awful sequels, and which ones were, oh my God, a Nazi is dying on screen. That's not cool. And so all these Nazis are showing up, wrecking the movie's chances of a box office. So you're just like, and then
Yeah.
you can also blame the marketing and everything. It's like, yeah, you kind of didn't ratchet up any interest. And the movie, the
Hmm.
trailer, I think this is it too. Just trailers, you can tell when the marketing team has actually watched the movie
Hmm.
versus just skimmed.
The ones, yeah.
Oh, Giancarlo Esposito's on screen, or so and so, some tough guys on screen. Let's just use that take, and that's the
Yeah.
movie.
But it's interesting about what you said. It does tie into what we're discussing.
Yeah, because Christmas is
This,
very much a marketing. There's so
yeah.
many people I encounter. They
Ex
they hate Christmas, but
Hmm.
then until you actually sit down and ask them, "Oh, why do you say that?" "Oh, it's
Hmm.
just I never get anything." Blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, so you've had a bad Christmas, but you're
Hmm.
speaking for other people, which
Yeah.
isn't cool.
Hmm.
I don't tell you how to raise your kid. It's just
Yeah. But I think also there's this notion of, again, goes back to the films of Christmas past where you have to have a story. It has to be this. It has to have, um,
someone is a
it has
monster
to,
to everybody and then
yeah, there has to be,
realizes,
exactly. It has to be the Scrooge story. It has to be that classic Christmas tale. And then there are
"Mhm,
people who say, well, no, it can be something different.
I
There are those who
identify with
say,
Scrooge.
yeah,
You're
and there are
making
those
me look."
who's, yeah, and there are those who will say, um, well, actually, no, my Christmases are always crap. I never have a good time. So I
Yeah.
love Die Hard because it's reflective of the kind of Christmases I have. When really the ultimate message is that entertainment is entertainment. It can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to follow a
Yes.
formula. And that's what's great about as we left the 90s. So the 90s ushered in some really good Christmas movies. I mean, look at
Hmm.
the Santa Claus trilogy. Well, maybe the
Yes.
first two, maybe not so much the last one, but the
Yeah, no, I
Santa
get
Claus
it.
trilogy is great fun. Kind of turned everything on its head a little bit, but kept on message. And then we go, and then we just go to, I know we missed Home Alone, but again, anarchic, a little bit of violence, a little bit of slapstick comedy, but with a message at its heart. And we
Hmm.
go into 21st century to the point where, Christmas movies don't have to be about Christmas. It can be Aquaman, it can be the latest Avengers movie, although I think they tend to be summer movies, but you know what I mean.
There was a
And
great article by Forbes, and I know some
mm,
people were like, "Oh, how dare you bring up a rich person's magazine?" It's like, well, I thought this editorial was clever, regardless of the platform it was on,
yeah.
and it had a chat about franchise fatigue. This is about 3 years
Hmm.
ago,
Yeah.
and it showed just like a decrease in box office as well as
Hmm.
reviews. You started getting the "I really like this" to the
Hmm.
"it's okay,"
Yeah.
but this is a big corporate movie, so I can't exactly give it a meh review. And then I saw plenty of other ones where it's like, okay, that it's very clear this
Hmm.
person doesn't like. these kinds of movies anymore. And so
Yeah.
then it's even goes back to the dust settling. It's like how much of it is they're done with it versus they've been done with it for a while and it finally bit them in the ass
Hmm.
versus, I have no
Yeah.
need for this anymore. But good on you if you get something out of it. It's just like, okay.
Absolutely. And that's certainly reflective of the sort of range of films that are coming out during this season. Look at Bad Santa 1 and 2. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton just being the worst. Well, actually, I wouldn't say the worst kind of Santa Claus. I think as you grow older and you get a bit cynical, you think, a loudmouth, whiskey swilling,
So
um,
fun fact, Tony Cox actually makes fun of his role in that one Psych episode,
yeah.
the
Oh,
the
lovely.
dwarf actor. Yeah.
It's that's kind of like, it's the standard joke, isn't it? That shopping center Santas tend to be, raging alcoholics,
Hmm.
on the bare bones of their ass, so to speak, or if you want to use that other phrase, not a pot to piss in or window to throw it out of, that sort of cynical sort of thing
Yep.
that we're kind of all okay with and accept, almost to the point. But films like that, I think, sort of continue to pave the way for, hey, you know what? There's an outlet for your kind of Christmas, but we've got an outlet for our kind of Christmas. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. And we are now in the Ghosts of Christmas Present, and I think I threw some titles at you in the run up to this, which I've revisited. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's some. Well, you mentioned It's a Wonderful Life, and not to sort of reinvent the wheel or touch that thing with any
How
kind of
about the unofficial sequel that almost was?
Yeah, yeah, the unofficial sequel that. But did you ever catch or hear of It's a Wonderful Knife?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's more very recent,
yeah,
and you reminded me of it before we started, and I was like,
yeah.
okay.
I have to admit, it took me a couple of goes to get into it, but once I watched it, I kind of saw it for what it was. It said, we want to kind of make a time traveling serial killer film, but use the George Bailey storyline here to kind of make
Yeah,
the same
it's a dark
point.
story.
Yeah, and I love how the premise is that this this character, Winnie Carruthers, played by Jane Widdop from Yellow Jackets, basically,
Oh, that's right. That is her.
yeah, that's her, basically says, you know what, all these bad things have happened. I wonder what the world would be like if I wasn't in it, or something like that. And it turns
It
out
is.
that if she wasn't in it, well, the serial killer would have been mayor of the town and would have just run roughshod over everybody. You
Hmm.
know, which I think is great. And that was a fab premise, and one of the few performances by Justin Long that I really enjoyed. And it's a little bit of subversive fun that came in under the radar. It didn't cause too much in the way of waves, other than I think some people just didn't like it, but that's not controversial.
It seems like
That's,
that's everything. I just don't like it.
yeah.
But so that's the follow-up question. Why don't you like it?
Why don't you like it?
There's a
One,
reason.
yeah.
Just saying I don't know or I don't like how you look.
Mm. So obviously, as you know, I do reviews, so I always come at these quite. I try to
Hmm.
sort of keep emotion out of it because I want to
You
write
have
a
to.
fair and balanced review. I never like trashing on anybody's work.
Roger Ebert always said he was amused when someone could still use his negative review
Hmm.
as a positive review for their marketing campaign. So it's just like, yeah, no one wants to commit
No.
murder with words. Good grief.
So,
Just
so with It's a Wonderful Knife, I'll tell you why that works. Why that works. They don't try to reinvent the wheel. They just say we're going to take this basic premise and just do something a little bit of fun with it.
mhm,
I think there's some good performances in it. Nobody's going to win any Oscars, but
not required.
Jane. No, but it's some good performances. It's quite believable. Uh, the premise is sound. But whereas some people thought this was completely mind blowing and oh, it's great, for me it was just, well, this is fun. I see what you're trying to do here. I'm not blown away, but
Decent try.
this is now in terms of being blown away. I don't know if you've caught this one, Violet Night.
Yeah, my friends and co-hosts really liked that
Yeah,
one. They saw it because it was Leguizamo was having fun being a villain, and it is kind of like a
A
action
villain called
packed.
Scrooge, by the way.
There you go, and it the reviews weren't half bad for it because I think they're just like,
No.
see, that movie didn't make any quibbles or lies about what
Mm,
it was trying to do.
no.
And
But the thing is, what's interesting about these two films and also John Woo's Silent Night and any other films that are following is that I brought up that Marks and Spencer's ad, the M&S ad, for a reason. The outrage that it dared to challenge the notion of what Christmas is
that's good.
seemed to just take over, take a life of its own. To quote Babylon 5, we all went mad and then it just took a life
Hey,
of its own.
there you go.
But you
Deep
look,
cut there.
well, I aim to please. So, but you look at something like It's a Wonderful Knife and you see it for what it is.
Who are
Then
you?
you've got
What do you
some,
want?
and then you've got something like Violent Night, which you know, you it's a nice little character study because they brought in David Harbour to play Santa Claus,
Mhm.
this guy who used to be a Viking, as it turns out,
Played
and
all
is
kinds of
now
people. Yeah.
yeah, and is now the sort of the bringer of joy at Christmas. And they basically do a Die Hard style movie, which
Oh,
I
nice.
thought was a really, really nice twist. And the director's got a real sense of style, and I was
That's
fascinated to
good.
learn that he did Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
Same guy.
Which,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
same guy. And David
Actually, I
Harbour
like
is,
that movie, but it
yeah,
gets a lot of hate. I,
it does, but it's actually quite good fun, and I like the two leads in it. I think it's Jeremy Renner and
Gemma
Gemma
Arterton.
Arterton.
Yep.
Yeah,
You gave us one of the best Brits. Yeah, she has done St. Trinian's and a lot of college comedies. I think she's actually a pretty bright gal. Who,
she is. Yeah, she is very. And Violent Night, I think, is one of those films that, yeah, it lives up to its title because it is quite violent. It is Santa Claus basically taking out terrorists. Although he takes a while to get to it and takes him a while to sort
copy of
of,
a copy, but the best kind.
yeah, exactly. But he then rises to the challenge, and yes, it is violent. But I don't think there was any of the kind of backlash because at its heart, it was still a Christmas story, which I thought was interesting. But I think this is kind of like the film that has that sort of it's fairly low budget. It's not like a huge studio production, but it
Hmm.
did well. It did the cinema rounds and it got a lot of praise. Mainly I think for David Harbour.
I think it attracted the right kind of crowd because
Yeah.
it, I don't know if it came out during the Super Bowl or whatever, but people knew, okay,
Hmm.
for the humbug in me, I'm checking this out
Yes. Yes.
versus I
Hmm.
don't know what I'm getting into. And it is so wild. Every other movie I see a stupid ass review about, I didn't see us people who liked it or thought it
Hmm.
went on too long and didn't care for it. I didn't see a single person who like, I don't get it.
No.
I didn't see a single, I don't get it. So
So
it's funny.
so what's come out for you, Cam, then? What's come out over the last few years?
Definitely
Seasonal films that
the the
you've
the
enjoyed?
the got to be the Ted Lasso Christmas special. I get that
Yeah.
I'm cheating and it's on Apple, but like you're gonna love how they recreate the Rankin Bass style. I think it's one of the better ones because
Yeah.
it works for that American British co-production,
Hmm.
and it's a good breather, if you will,
Yeah.
for what everybody's doing. And unfortunately, I see so many other movies. I know you do too, where you're just like, okay, that like we all like Benedict Cumberbatch, but like he did a Grinch movie, and that was one of
Hmm.
those. It's like, okay, well, so other than the voice, nothing really changed with your take on the familiar tale or the animation, even.
No. And
So
to be
yeah,
fair, Benedict Cumberbatch is a bit of sort of one of those obvious choice castings. And, if you're going to get someone to sort of who has the right voice and can sort of
will
project
make you
that,
jump out of your seat and
yeah,
say, "Wow, I would have never guessed where that performance come from." And
exactly.
so, unfortunately, I think we're still getting too many just like. Uh, if I've been told everything from the trailer, I'm not going to last long.
Hmm.
Uh, there's a few other Shane Black movies that that he does with Joel Silver and the likes that do kind of illustrate his whole, you know, here's my violent version of Christmas that Violent
Hmm.
Night is definitely trying to recapture.
Yep.
Um, the Gremlins TV show I would actually recommend too, because it's a prequel to both Christmas movies, and even though there's not much snow, there's kind of you get that kind of holiday cheer element,
Yeah.
well, but in an anti way also
Yeah.
makes it.
You mentioned Shane Black there actually. What is it with Shane Black in Christmas that he's got to have violence and destruction between Lethal Weapon and Long Kiss Goodnight? He just
It's it's his signature basically. He
yeah.
just likes having just outrageous just things happen at times where they shouldn't be happening. Even Last Boy Scout is like
Yeah.
New Year's, I think. So you're just like, wow,
That
I would
one's New
never.
Year's, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. And even if you don't like one of his movies, it's like still, I got to give it off to him. This is his signature. He likes bringing, showing how people come together at the worst time in their
Hmm.
lives, which would
Yeah.
be over Christmas. And
Is Christmas the worst time of our lives? I don't know.
well, the
Phone
worst
in with
time
your
for you to be
answers.
having, for the worst time for you to be having just like a meltdown or something. Just like
Yeah, when you've got everything else in.
timing, man, timing.
Absolutely, absolutely. But this whole notion of violence in Christmas and what constitutes a Christmas story, what have you, I think we're kind of fortunate in that we now have so many avenues to enjoy content. So we've got streaming
Hmm.
platforms, we've got physical media, and we've got terrestrial and cable satellite television
Bingo.
to enjoy. If what you want is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, because I will sit and I still love Love Actually. I will sit and watch
I
Love
do
Actually every
too.
year
I
with my
don't
wife.
understand why it's hated.
Well, I think there's elements of it that, if you were to break it down academically, I suppose, yeah, I can see where they're coming from. I don't necessarily,
Too many coincidences in the plot,
yeah,
I guess.
I think the whole sort of, I think the scenes involving Andrew Lincoln's character, not stalking, but sort of kind of
I've heard about how that's not too
ogling
Me Too
Keira Knightley.
friendly.
Yeah,
But one time I got from what's his name, Simon Cockle, who's a screenwriter and
yeah.
podcaster, and his take was he didn't like the portrayal of just the Brits in general in that movie. And
Mm.
so I'm like,
Well,
interesting.
I th
Okay.
I think if there's one portrayal of Brits, or actually one portrayal I'm not keen on is this notion. So there's a character there played by an actor called Chris Marshall. He does a really great job. He's the one that decides that he wants to get laid. So where else is he going to go? He's going to go to the States where they're all footloose and fancy free. And next thing you know, the day he arrives, he's having a foursome with three lovely girls, and but
Mhm.
just also this notion that American women are free and easy. Um, Again, kind of, I'm thinking, really, do you really want to go down that route? That is just a bit sort of strange, really. But no,
It's kind of illustrating the killjoys in some of these critics.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
We've
but
been called humbugs when we don't care for certain holidays and the amount when
yeah.
we look at our bank statements and we're like, we're not really celebrating. We're kind
Mm.
of just
But you
buying
know what?
wash.
I think Love Actually is one of those films that does have some ideas that I think if you take them out of a cinema of cinema, sorry, take them out of a real situation, as in a cinema reel, and put them in
Hmm.
real life, they would be creepy. It's like I always often say, if there was a Batman running around in real life, you would want him
Yeah, as a
stopped.
gimp. Yeah.
Yeah. So if in real life, or a friend, let's say I had a friend who said, listen, I'm in love with our friend's wife. I think I'm gonna stand outside her house with some
Have an
cards telling
affair.
her at Christmas I love her. You're gonna turn around and say, don't do it. You're gonna say, that's a
I'm gonna
terrible
say,
idea.
let me call the cops
Yeah.
faster.
I'd say that's a terrible idea and you need help. But in the context of a fantasy movie where it's safe,
People don't act like real people, and you
yeah,
just say, okay.
and you get the sentiment and the characters, it's okay. But real life is very di and I think there needs to be that separation and none a separation that is none more illustrated by the fact that Love Actually is Prime Minister Tony Blair's least favorite film.
Eh,
The reason being is because in that film, the British Prime Minister, played by Hugh Grant, stands up to the mighty tyrannical, you know, US president, flies in the face of the special relationship. And people are
nah.
asking Tony Blair, why can't you be like him? And he's going, well, it's all very well in the movies, but in real life, it doesn't work
Well,
that way.
again, yeah. Well,
And he's
it
thinking,
could even work that way, but you know how it is. Is
yeah,
like they all got a reason for why they're slumming it.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
there's a lot of politicians who hate the West Wing, for instance, because it,
Yes, I imagine they do.
well, and because it also shows progress being made and what have you. And
Hmm.
you're just like,
But it also shows how progress is hampered as well. It shows
hmm.
what politicians can be like on both sides of the fence, and I would imagine neither of them like that. But
I guarantee you, someone
yeah,
probably
go
in
on.
Britain probably hates Spooks or Line of Duty just because it's
Um,
holding all these power figures, accountable.
I don't know because I think actually MI5 offered, well, when James Bond was still being filmed, I think
Oh no,
MI5
trust me,
said,
I
come
I
and
love I love it a bunch, but like
yeah,
I'm surprised how I haven't seen anyone go, oh, it's unrealistic, and like oh, so there's this show with Robert Carl,
mm,
which is a disaster show. He's the president, whatever.
yeah.
I saw a lot of Brits hating it, and they're like, it's unrealistic, it's bloody joke, and I'm like, and
Oh,
sorry for my
kudos for your
offensive.
English. No, kudos for your English accent, by the way.
Yeah. So no, trust me, I picked up on the slang. I've had to teach people what pants means. It's like, okay, that means they think it's shit. Uh, but it is funny. I was like, I saw a lot of them saying, downright unrealistic and everything. I'm like, well, I mean, you didn't have a problem with all these other movies taking license. What's
Yeah,
it's
but you
even
see,
showing a very liberal
yeah,
staff with a conservative president too. So it's trying to dig into a nugget
mm,
that isn't easy to talk about. So I mean,
yeah. No, exactly. I know what you mean, and that ties into what was said about Love Actually, that people sort of were saying, "Why can't you be like this Prime Minister?" And
how
the
dare
Prime
you
Minister.
exist? Yeah.
But it is. You mentioned the West Wing. Actually, I think the West Wing for me has still given one of the best Christmas episodes ever on
Oh,
television,
that's right.
and
There
that's
is a good
Noel.
one in that.
Noel. I
Yes.
thought that was a brilliant episode because actually, in a way, it was saying,
How
be
many
careful
West
how
Wing
you
episodes?
celebrate Christmas because you might start off somebody having episodes
Hmm.
as a result of a shooting in which they nearly died. But I mean, the comedy aside, I loved how that story was told in flashback, back and forth, and how it broke down the
Yes.
events until it's unraveling at the end, and that
It was
realization of
kind of a
what triggered it.
cynical of other cynical like parodies of Dickens or It's a Wonderful Life in a way.
I think it sort of starts off cynical because the character Josh Lyman, brilliant performance by
Hmm.
Bradley Whitford, who's one of my favorite actors.
Yes, good actor.
I think it's just because the character starts off cynical and he's cynical and defensive. He's like, I don't know why I'm here, and I'm just going to put up this wall to push you away. And it's just when you break through those
I'm glad you
walls.
brought those up because they also had Impact Dinner, Abu El Banat, Holy Night, Bartlett
Hmm.
for America, and
Yeah,
the first one was in an Excelsis Dio and
yeah.
actually
Hmm.
was aired as a Christmas special because it was the first season. But yeah, Noel, like you say, is where they got really, really is like psychiatrist is just basically is breaking into his
Hmm.
mind. It's like, tell me how you got here.
Yeah. And I like the fact that the message at the end was twofold. The
Eh,
psychiatrist played by Adam Larkin, I think
yes, good
first name
actor.
is Stanley, brilliant actor. Uh, he says when Josh asks, well, what do I do from here? He says, we get better.
I
And
love
you
it.
think, and then that says it all to you, really. And that's true in life when somebody has to deal with PTSD or some other mental health problem.
Hmm.
There is that reassuring um, three-letter sentence, we get better.
We get better.
And then at the end, you have the sort of the story that Leo McGarry tells.
Hmm.
Still miss John Spencer, by the way. Leo McGarry tells about the guy in the hole. It is that wow moment, and I think that's something that is missing from a lot of stories. Actually, is just that sort of revelation of okay, you can be hopeful without being too schmaltzy, if that's not your thing.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
You
and
can
it's something that is,
still.
yes, something that is very relevant. It's such brilliant storytelling. I think very few Christmas episodes or Christmas stories, I think,
Most
have
of
that
them
kind
get
of
confused
weight.
in the music and the setting and
Hmm.
just lose the overall appeal, while these go way into is like, let's
Hmm.
pull back the curtain.
Yeah.
And it's both a character origin story and a bigger illustration, a bigger
Hmm.
picture.
Hmm.
Uh, I take it you've seen the Office Christmas special for the UK version.
Yes. And I'll tell you something about that as well. That may shock people, and however many tens of people who listen to
It's
this
your
episode.
show, dude.
Yeah, I know, but I like to be fair, and I was not a fan of The Office because I'm not a
Oh, good.
huge Ricky Gervais fan.
Okay.
I tend to like him, not like him, but I was not a fan of The Office. However, I do love The Office Christmas special, and I think any greatest TV moments in history, uh, look back, should always at least feature that episode because I think it's brilliantly executed. It has some of the best comedic moments. It's very touching. And for a brief moment, it really does make you like David Brent. Sort
Yes.
of at the end where Martin Freeman's character kisses I forget the character's name because like I said, I didn't pay attention to it, but he kisses the girl. He gets the girl, doesn't he? And he gives her a kiss and the sort of dopey character played by Mackenzie Crook, he makes some kind of joke, and David Brent just goes, "Oh, fuck off," as if
Hmm.
to say, "Leave him alone. This is his moment. Be happy for him." And I just thought,
Yes.
yes, yeah, the guy has redeemed himself
Well, and
in just
the
that
American
moment.
Office, that's how it actually came into fruition. It was not big in
Yeah.
the States the first year, but the Christmas episode was free on iTunes.
Mhm.
And that is what, and it's done at least six other Christmas specials
Yeah.
since. But
I think there's I think the thing with before we go on to like a few more films of Christmas present and then look to the future, um,
the future.
when you look at UK Christmas specials, they tend to be sort of centered around soap operas. So we've got shows like
True.
EastEnders, set in the East End of London,
A hospital
Coronation Street,
show is going
set
to
in the
have a
East End of
day.
Manchester.
Yeah.
You get the kind of very dour, very sort of um, they're not great,
Retrospect.
yeah, but nearly all our Christmas specials or Christmas viewing tend to be centered around those shows. And
We don't like them because we've seen how narrow-minded they can be, where it's
yeah.
just an excuse for faith music and it doesn't make you feel good. It just reminds you
Hmm.
of the cheese. So when you see them actually really just owning it, like
Hmm.
getting it down through and through, you're just like, man, that was where did that come from? That was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, well, they've had, I mean, these soap operas, they tend to be sort of somebody gets shot.
Oh
It's
God.
not as exciting as Who Shot JR in Dallas. Let me tell you now, we don't do sexy soap operas, like
Kind of
Dallas
hard to do
Dynasty,
sexily. Yeah.
General Hospital. What's the other one you have out there? Bold and the Beautiful,
Oh,
Bold and the Brave.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
we don't do anything
one
like it. It's just EastEnders, Coronation Street, Emmerdale,
EastEnders. Yeah.
Brookside. Oh, well, no, we don't have that anymore. Hollyoaks.
London's
The
Burning was
names
that
of
kind of soapy.
that was more sort of action drama.
That was
So,
just a
but with a bit
long,
of soap opera element.
very
That
long
was
going. Okay.
yeah. But these are shows that have been going sort of 40,
The
50
Bill.
years.
Just kidding.
Now the bill, I would happily have that back. But like I said, we
No,
don't
no, it's a
do
good show. I just
yeah.
find it funny how it's like some shows, it is funny how they accidentally get labeled as a soap because they had a subplot that went there or recurring storyline and then is like, yeah, no, it's just a good show that happened to be on
Yeah.
for 13 years and drove you crazy because your parents and grandparents watched it.
I think the bill did get a little bit soapy towards the end. It used to be episodic in nature, very much. It was like, this is just a fictionalized account of Bobby's on the street. Yeah, and there were some one-off excite, but then they started bringing in these recurring characters. You had your raging alcoholic, you had your loose cannon, and it was sort of getting a bit okay, right? We're straight. It was interesting, but it got into a very strange territory. But like I said,
I
Christmas
bet.
specials around here tend to be centered around those sort of gritty, not sexy soaps where everybody sleeps with everybody to the point where you wonder at some point, are they now inbred? And
How did they not get AIDS? Yeah.
yeah, let's not go there. I think they did that story as well.
Oh,
Yeah, we went there before everyone else. But
kind of like that episode The Simpsons did it. It's like who made fun of who first,
yeah, exactly.
next week on Ally McBeal. I don't
Yeah. So,
know.
like I said, that tends to be our soap specials, but we talked about Noel being a really great Christmas story, and we talked about Ted Lasso. So the last year or so, at the time that M&S ad came out, I keep going back to that because I just can't believe the shockwaves it sent. Because less than a month later, um, controversially, not controversially, but John Woo came back to Hollywood with Silent Night. Joel Kinnaman as the avenging angel in the film. And
Hmm.
it's controversial in the UK because it never got a cinema release. Lionsgate sent it straight to home streaming. And
Eh,
that's usually a red flag for me when something's earmarked for cinema release and they go, yeah, let's just,
mm.
let's give that to Sky TV. Sky Cinema can put that out near Christmas. Let people watch that in their homes. Let's not get them.
Sky.
And I think there is an
Mm.
element of cynicism in post-COVID towards releasing films in the cinema. It's like,
Because you've seen how bad it is with
yeah.
like our Christmas Prince and all. Yeah.
hmm So, jump forward 8 months later, Deadpool and Wolverine is going to get a cinema release because that's going to make money. John Woo coming back to Hollywood with Joel Kinnaman, a kind of mid-level star or actor, if you like.
Hmm.
Actor's probably better than star because Joel Kinnaman is one of those guys. He's a really good actor, but I don't know
Yeah.
if he is a star. Yeah, he doesn't have that
The
X
Killing and
factor
Altered
element.
Carbon. Yeah.
Yeah, I like watching him. He's fine. And in Silent Night, he was really good. Really got into the character. And I know you've said to me before, you kind of don't watch a lot of John Woo now because, the last few decades of his films haven't been that
Uh,
great.
he did the Killer remake recently, and I've seen clips of that, and I'm like, why did you
I
remake
haven't seen that
it?
yet. I'm curious to see what they've done with it, but I haven't seen that. But I think I kind of not, I didn't fall out of love with John Woo, but I think John Woo's American career wasn't sustainable compared to, say,
No.
Jackie Chan. Although Jackie Chan
Mhm.
obviously didn't direct
Oh, he's
films
had
when he
some
came to
runs too.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't direct films when he came to Hollywood. He was the performer and he was the choreographer.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of directors from Hong Kong didn't have sustainable careers. They all at some point went back to China to
Yeah.
continue their careers. I mean, John Woo redeemed himself. You should watch a film called Red Cliff Parts 1 and 2. Absolutely
Eh,
amazing epic drama.
I couldn't get into those.
Yeah.
I
Um,
did like I did like Reign of Assassins, which he
mhm.
directed the action for, which had
Yeah,
Michelle Yeoh. But
yes.
I don't
But you know
know.
what? I watched when I first watched it, first watched Silent Night, I enjoyed it because it was quintessential Woo. It was all the hallmarks there. You've got the death defying stunts. You've got the gun fu. You've got the slow-mo, the Peckinpah style slow-mo. I mean, he attributes that to Peckinpah. So to Sam Peckinpah. For those who
Hmm.
don't know the name, look him up on Google. Read Quentin Tarantino's Cinema Speculation to know more. But
Huh.
when I first saw Silent Night, um, again, it wasn't doing anything controversial by saying, we're going to use Christmas as a catalyst for vengeance. It was just, like you say, somebody having their worst day at this particular noteworthy time. But the thing that hit me was that, well, in an era where 8711 and Chad Stahelski, David Leitch, all those people are revolutionizing action films, whether it's with John Wick or whether David Leitch going to do Deadpool 2 and The Fall Guy and Hobbs and Shaw, whether you like Hobbs and Shaw is neither here nor there, he's still redefining action movies. And like I said, John Wick doing that whole, we're going to pay homage to Hong Kong action
Mhm.
to Akira Kurosawa, to Walter Hill. You know,
Yeah,
we're going to show our action credentials and our action nerdisms in this film series. You know, I kind of felt like, okay, it's nothing we haven't seen before, but it is, but on reflection, it is John Woo doing what he does best and
that's good.
unashamedly so. And it's always nice to see a master at work. And I know you're a bit of a cynic when it comes to this, but I recommend to you and anybody listening to this podcast, those 5, 10 people that tune in, do check out Silent Night. It's
All
good to
right,
see the guy back in action. It's good to see Joel Kinnaman doing something quite fairly meaty. I mean, having to
that's
not
good.
speak and convey emotion as someone who's been shot in the throat and his son killed, and then he turns himself into this vicious, avenging angel. Uh, you know, and it has all the things you would expect from a Wu film, and it has all the entertainment factor you would want from a Christmas film. You know, you come everything's crazy at the moment. Shops are bursting. Online stores are just delaying sending out stuff because they're overwrought with orders, and you're wrapping things up before Christmas. You sit down and you just vent it all out through this film. It's really nice to sort of have a film like that. That is just such a
That's good.
great release. And you can also watch Silent Night and release all that angst over the overreactors of the Marks and Spencers as well. You think, do you know
Jeez.
what, guys, sit down, watch Silent Night, you'll have a good time. But that was last year was actually last couple of years have been good for, you know, left field Christmas movies like Violent Night,
Did you
like
know
It's a
that
Wonderful
the
Life.
Rocky and Rambo movies are also unofficially Christmas? Like Rocky 4 takes place on
Rocky Four
Christmas,
takes, yeah,
but
I
the first Rambo apparently is in. You can see Christmas trees in the when he
mhm.
first enters that Canada town.
Yeah. Well, isn't the first Rocky, it's not set at Christmas, but it's set around that time because
Hmm.
they because the fight between Apollo and Rocky takes place, I think, is it a centenary celebration?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. So which is just after Christmas. I think it's January 6th. Oof, there's an ominous date for you. I'll have to go back and watch that, but I'm pretty sure it's like some kind of marked winter holiday celebration,
Canadian
and they go
Christmas.
through
Yeah.
Christmas. They go through all of them. They go through Thanksgiving. They go through Christmas. It is a very seasonal film, actually. Rocky, if you think about it. But Rocky 4, yeah, is that unofficial Christmas movie because the Soviets, those evil communists,
Right,
decide to,
jingoistic.
yeah,
You're like,
decide to have the fight of
you're
the
different
Titans
from
on
us.
Christmas Day. How dare you?
Oh
And I'm
boy,
thinking, what's the best time?
where else is it going to happen?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's fun that you mentioned that. But it is nice the last couple of years there's been a string of films that have kind of rocked the boat of Christmas and said, you know, come on, let's make it action packed, let's make it fun. Let's have fun this Christmas. Let's have fun your way. It doesn't have to be, like I said, Elf on a Shelf, Gingerbread House. You can just sit back and watch Santa Claus kick 10 levels of shit out of terrorists who break into this family's home. And
Yeah.
I think so. Looking forward, then, Ghosts of Christmas Yet to Come. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Beep,
Um,
beep, beep.
I think the one that kind of falls into both categories because it's one that's out now, but I'm not going to watch until near Christmas is Terrifier 3.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if you've seen this one yet. Have you been to check it out? Is it
Yeah,
any
not
good?
yet, but I'm gonna binge it. And so far, people who didn't even care for it are still glad they went out to see it.
Yeah.
They could. It's one of those. It's a mid-budget. It's been a pleasant surprise, making
Hmm.
fun of the slasher genre, and
Yeah.
people like the clown monster guy. And
Hmm.
it's one of those. I'm sure they'll churn out six more of them, but I think that's just it. Like the Christmas angle was part of the marketing campaign. They're like,
Hmm.
we're gonna do another one, but this time it's at Christmas, so you know
Yeah.
it. Shit's
Which they're
going
going to
down
release ahead of Halloween.
ahead of Halloween. Yeah, so there you go. It'll
I
still
think,
probably be in theaters around Christmas time, but
well,
get the Halloween money too. Yeah.
yeah, well, why not? Actually, it's a very clever bit of marketing because it is set around Christmas, and I don't think there's anything scarier than a killer clown that looks the way Art the Clown, because that's his name, Art the Clown,
Hmm.
um, looks. You put him in a Christmas outfit, and he's killing people, and he's blood. Just from the trailers alone, that visually speaking, that is terrifying. Hence, I suppose the title.
Yes.
But they also put the tagline. They deliberately released it in time for Halloween because obviously you need a scary film for Halloween. But they put the tagline, "Christmas has come early," and I
Yeah.
thought, do you know what? At first I thought, why are you releasing the Halloween? Then when that came up, I thought, very clever. Now that is proper old school marketing. Just Christmas has come early. We're going to release this Christmas film at Halloween, and
There you
then by the
go.
time it comes to streaming, people will probably Saturday night before Christmas or on Christmas say, right, get the popcorn out. We've had our turkey dinner. Let's
You
sit
know
and
what we're
watch
watching.
this.
Yeah.
And I got to admit, I've not caught up with these films, but I will, like you, I will binge them ahead of time because
Binging does make a difference. I think a lot of people, if they don't let the hype kill them, then they
yeah,
let just the wait and the having to
hmm
refresh. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of did yourself a disservice.
hmm
I don't
But I'm looking forward to that. I think Damien Leone has created probably one of the best franchise horror characters since pick any of the originals that have stood the test of time. Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees.
There you go.
But Freddy Krueger, I don't think has lasted as well because I think nobody likes to, uh, hold in adulation basically a child killer. You know,
I have
um,
heard of All Hallows Eve. I
yeah,
did see a movie he co-produced. Actually, he wrote and direct called Frankenstein versus the Mummy, which was a
yes,
fun throwback to Hammer
yeah,
horror uh type, and versus movies. So
hmm
it is interesting how he's just been one of those guys in the background. I've heard about Scream, which is
hmm
another slasher horror making fun of the internet. So he's found his bread and butter, which is to
he has, yeah.
lean into that.
But with Terrifier 3, I was watching the trailer and I watched a couple of clips that crept onto YouTube, and it got me to thinking one thing. Don't know if you've heard of it. It's a film called Chopping Mall from the 80s.
Hmm.
This is what Chopping Mall should have been, as opposed to robots going around with lasers. This you've got a killer in a shopping center. We don't call them malls, we call them malls, but or shopping center, if you like. Going on a killing spree. And I think
Yeah,
that whole image again, the guy who plays him, I think his name is something like David Howard Thornton.
something
He's
like
one of
that.
those guys who, will put on a costume and through his performance and facial expressions really bring that character to life. He reminds me of Kevin Peter Hall and he reminds me of Doug
Mm.
Jones in that regard. And I think when you've got a very, very physical character in that role, he makes it all more convincingly terrifying. Again, no pun intended. So I think that's one that's currently doing the rounds that I'm looking forward to seeing nearer Christmas. It is a
Mm.
seasonal film. I'm saving it for then. Um, I've got a couple that I want to throw at you, but before I do, I want to give you a chance to speak. Not that I have been muffling your voice. Sorry, hit the microphone there. But is there any that you've heard of that you're looking forward to seeing that you think I'm
Terrifier
gonna?
3 is kind of the only one currently. I'm
Hmm
sure there's others that are popping up. There were a few that came out last year. I think there was one for Apple that had Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell that was kind of a sleeper hit, but I
hmm
didn't see yet. But family members saw and said, hey, that was fun. That
hmm
was not what I was expecting. So they're there. And like you say, it just seems like if you don't see them when you see them, then you just slowly catch them at some other point. But I
Yeah.
mean, would Groundhog's Day be a holiday movie? Because it's kind of set during various periods, and it seems like a lot of holiday movies rip that premise off.
Yeah, I mean there are a few. Oh God, what's the one that that really rips off Groundhog Day in a very subversive fashion. Oh yes, Boss Level with Frank Grillo and Mel Gibson, Michelle Yeoh.
I love that movie. Yeah, that. So there you go. There's a recent movie that kind of fell through the cracks. It should have been in theaters, but instead it
Mm,
was at a festival where investors picked it up, and then after a COVID delay, premiered on Hulu. And I kept recommending it to people. I'm like, guys, you have no idea.
yeah,
Like, if you're a gamer, you will love this movie. If you're into Inception type movies, you'll love this movie. If you
yeah.
just want to see, and then of course I'd get the, oh, what about the Mel Gibson angle? I'm like, they're in on the joke when they're using them.
Hmm.
They use them where they need to use them. You don't have to. It,
Yeah.
I mean, Frank Grillo is again good at making fun of what you expect an action hero to be, while
Hmm.
also, again, yeah, just making fun of computer programmings and hacking, and you're just like, yeah, it's
Hmm.
nutty, 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 nutty movie, and you should check it out
Oh, totally agree.
instead
So,
of getting annoyed by something because it's, I don't know, a 4 hour Oscar movie or something making fun of toys, but still a toy movie.
yeah.
There's no, there shouldn't be any issue with.
Yeah. But I think in terms of Christmas movies to look forward to, I've mentioned Terrifier 3. Um, Obviously, the big
Yes.
studio production that's coming out, we don't want to give it too much publicity because the hype's already there. But it's going to be released early November. Is Red One with Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans,
Whoa.
trying to find his place post Captain America. Um, Actually, I'll say this about it. The thing I love about the trailer, it ticks all the boxes. So no doubt my granddaughter wants to see that, so we will take her to see that
Oh
film.
my goodness. I did hear about this.
So it looks a lot of fun, but there is one bit in the trailer that I absolutely love, and I don't know if anybody's picked up on this in the chatter on social media or on Reddit or anything, is that it has J.K. Simmons in there as Santa Claus, as Father
Okay.
Christmas.
That's what I'm getting
And
kind of
there's a
from the
scene, there's a scene
poster.
where Dwayne Johnson's character, I don't know who he's supposed to be, his bodyguard or body man or something.
Looks like
He's
it.
standing over Santa Claus who's in the gym doing bench presses and he's on his 500th one. And when he gets up, he's not seriously jacked, but you can see that J.K. Simmons has been in the gym because he's got some good muscles. He's got his big bushy beard, and it reminded me of that fake picture that was sent saying, "Oh, this is J.K. Simmons working out for his role as Commissioner Gordon in the upcoming Justice League movie." And it turned out not to be true, but he was all
No.
jacked up and working out. I think it was
Lucy Liu's
poking.
in it, so that's
Yeah.
cool.
So Simmons is he always brings something extra to the role, but I think for
Mm-hmm.
them to kind of parody that a little bit, where he gets you see it's J.K. Simmons with muscles and this
Jake
beard.
Kasdan is directing. Bonnie
Yeah.
Hunt is Mrs. Claus. So
Yeah.
I had
Mhm.
heard of that, but I didn't know any other gist of it.
Yeah.
So it's an Amazon MGM production.
Yeah.
They're hoping to release that theatrically. Okay. Well,
Yeah, well, they're releasing it in November, which surprises me, but I would have thought
yeah,
that would be like a late November release to.
it's more common than you think.
Mm,
It's kind of like, don't get me wrong. I did my share of retail. It's not as bad as when they order all the holiday stuff and we have to sneak it
mhm.
in around summertime because then the
Yeah.
prices get jacked up a bunch. And uh but it is one of those. I think the what suffers the most during the holidays is probably the radio. Like, I kid you not, like the minute
Hmm.
Thanksgiving is complete, Christmas music starts getting played 24/7. You're like, it's not even Christmas yet. Come on, man. So don't get me wrong. Any movie can be goofed up by marketing,
Hmm.
or if anything, it is probably the things that are driving us crazy are just the stuff that we know is never going to be improved.
Yeah.
That could be better.
Hmm.
Kind of like when you're rooting for a sports star who you know is not going to do their job for the team,
Yeah.
or a
Hmm.
celebrity who is a has-been but keeps making bad decisions with their career that
Hmm.
make you wonder why you're a fan to begin with. So I do think we're getting a bit of that with the holidays where you're like, hey, I did enjoy it. It's just because of the
Hmm.
slew of how things are run now, I'm not really warmed up to it, no pun. And so I think, yeah, all you can do really is just look at the positives, like
Yeah,
I'll probably catch that sometime sooner or later.
yeah. Well, like I said, that's one. It caught my
That's
attention
different.
for that moment.
Yeah.
It is different, and I think
He's a
that's
North
one.
Pole security guy and
Apparently,
good
yeah,
acting on the Santa actor. And then you got
mm,
these stars who've been quiet for a while doing some directing and producing who are
yeah,
getting back in. Obviously, they found something in it.
hmm
Chris Ellis, before he jumped on the cash cow to do Fast and Furious, he was doing all kinds of other bizarre thrillers and everything.
yeah,
So it might be, hey, I got a wacky comedy adventure film. And I got the son of Lawrence Kasdan who's been doing directing. So best wishes. I get that it's
yeah,
hard.
hmm
Trailers can ruin a movie, and then half
yeah,
the time we catch it on pay-per-view or what have you, and we're like, that wasn't half bad, but the reviews, I would have never seen it if I were going off of what they had. I think
hmm
it doesn't help that with uh low budget or limited releases, those get like 5 reviews.
hmm
So then for the longest time, no one wants to check them out because it's like all it takes is one, and that sinks the whole. If the rest of them are mixed, that
yeah,
that comes in with a nasty rating of a
hmm
movie. And it's like, well, it was never going to be a big hit with the mainstream anyway. So
hmm
yeah, it's a pickle. It's a needle in a haystack sometimes. Find
yeah,
something.
it can be. But in terms of stuff to look forward to, there's a couple of titles that caught my attention. I mean, there's a new Grinch cartoon coming out, so
What?
yeah, yeah. There's apparently a new Grinch cartoon coming out. There's, I think, a couple of animated Santa Claus style adventures coming out as well. Um, there is one film actually that caught my attention. You may like this or not. It's called Athena Saves Christmas,
Dino
uh,
saves
and
Christmas.
it stars Cuba Gooding Jr., another controversial figure.
The
But playing sort
hell
of the
of a
sheriff, it's set in small town America. But although it stars Cuba Gooding, he's not the
with
star.
Arnold's son Joseph Baina. Wow.
Yeah, and basically it's three kids who uncover the fact that there's some mafia types in town who
I'm
rob the
looking at
jewelry
it.
store, and
Er,
they,
Sonny Red from Donnie Brasco is in this. My
yeah,
God.
yeah. I was just about to say actually, it's got some sort of soprano types in there. But yeah, Sunny Red
Here's one
comes to
for you.
town.
Okay, so I had Simon Phillips on the show in the past. He's
Hmm
an Irish actor who's done all kinds of hooligan type movies and
Yeah.
everything. He guest starred on Fubar, the Schwarzenegger spy sitcom recently.
hmm
Every once in a while, he does Once Upon a Time in Christmas, where he plays a serial killer version of Santa.
Yeah.
So he's done a few of those wacky slasher movies.
hmm
You probably know him from the He Who Dare movies, which are his answer to the raid. So
Yeah.
that they're out there. It's just you do have to kind of skim through freaking
Yeah.
Amazon and Tubi to get to the end of the tunnel. So
Oh, I'd imagine. But looking at the reading about that, look at the trailer, I'm thinking, well,
Cuba.
if you kind of want something that's a bit fun, feel good, and thinking, well, what the hell is Cuba Gooding Jr. doing with his career? I think this is one to look at. I think
Can't
it's
be
one.
worse than these Christian movies he's doing.
Mm, he's doing what now?
He's doing Christian movies.
What, like Kevin Sorbo, Neil
In fact,
McDonough,
they're actually in one together.
all three of them?
I'm I'm like, what the hell?
That would be worth a watch. I would love to sort of cast my critical eye over that, and I would be analytical and fair, and I would say what
Well, and it's
works.
so
But
funny is I would see the billboards. I'm like, what is this for? And then you look at the poster, you're like, I know exactly what they're saying without having said it. It's like, okay, so they're being persecuted in the future for having controversial beliefs. Okay.
here we
The
go. Yeah.
the alt-right Christians have been doing some very dangerous stuff. I know one of those groups came out with one which was basically pretending to be a documentary denying January 6th violence that happened in
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. And I'm
hmm
like, see, if that's not misinformation, then what is?
hmm
It's like dangerous stuff. But it is wild how Kirk Cameron had a movie called like Saving Christmas or something, and it was like he
Yeah.
successfully pissed off everybody who he usually attacks. It's just like, see, that's not a Christmas movie.
So
You
he
think
makes he makes a Christmas movie that actually isn't a Christmas movie.
it's like prosecuting, pissing off everybody he hates, and you're just like treating everybody that literally does not make sense for what he's
Mm.
for his argument. So you're just like, man, what an anti-Christmas movie, I guess, but in the
Well,
worst possible
well, this might cheer you up then. You mentioned Schwarzenegger earlier.
way.
He's going to start production. It's not going to be out till next year, but he's going to start production this Christmas on a film called The Man with the Bag. He
What?
and then his co-star. I mean, talk about two larger than life
Looking it up.
figures. Arnold Schwarzenegger teams up with Alan Ritchson, so Jack Reacher himself, who's
Jack
also
freaking
doing
Reach.
well. Who's also doing well. Richardson's doing really well
Once again, it's
in
for Amazon
yeah,
MGM, so that's must be their new shtick. Because I
yeah.
know they had one with Eddie Murphy that actually came out last Christmas. I totally forgot about that.
That was quite good, wasn't it, actually? That
Okay,
was all
good.
right, yeah.
Wow.
But this
There's
one,
even yeah. Wow.
yeah, I mean, you've got Schwarzenegger, you've got Richardson flying high off Fast X and Ungentlemanly Warfare. It's directed by Adam Shankman, who
Hmm.
did Rock of Ages, my favorite musical to movie
Oh wow.
adaptation, and screenplay by a guy called Alan Rice, whose background is in television. So this is his first feature film,
Mm.
and I actually like the premise because um, in it Schwarzenegger plays Santa Claus, which is I think is great. Uh, bit of casting there. I love that. If you want a bit of left field casting of Santa Claus, who better than Schwarzenegger? And he seeks the help of Richardson, who plays a charming thief named Vance,
It's always got to
basically
be a
to
thief.
find his
It's
magical
always
bag
got
of
to be.
well, it's to find his magical bag of gifts. And if you look at Christmas Chronicles and Red One, and why does Father Christmas keep losing his bag of gifts? I mean, surely he
You're
should be
right.
entrusting that to someone else.
Oh well,
But
I have one for you. So there's this great podcast called the Who Would Win Show.
yeah,
James
who would
Cassidy
win?
is a martial artist who
Yeah,
has trained Secret Service guys and cops against
yeah,
a former wrestler named Ray, and
yeah,
they have fictional characters duke it out, but they take everything. Like they're
yeah.
like, I'm repping a book version of a character or a comic book character
Hmm.
or a video game guy. And they all have their blind spots. One of them doesn't play much games. The other likes to rep characters from infamous movies. I've tried to encourage them to have
Yeah.
someone like the Wishmaster or Maniac Cop on there, but they've
Hmm.
had plenty of others. They had an X-Men character versus Jeepers Creepers for Shocktober, so that was good. But
Ooh, I
they
would
they
love
have
to
they
hear the outcome of that.
they have had a lot of fun ones. They've had Jack Bauer versus Jason Bourne. They've had
Ooh.
Thanos versus Goku, and
I'll tell you what
the
this reminds me of, Cam, is I used to watch it over here. Deadliest
Celebrity
Warriors.
Deathmatch, Deadliest Warriors. Okay,
Deadliest
well,
Warriors.
I'm
You
sure
know, the
one of them has
Spartan
seen
versus the
that.
ninja and the samurai versus the
The
Viking.
History Channel show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. It's a bit like that and Celebrity Deathmatch, and they try to keep it PG. Well, and it's so funny when you can tell they so want to curse right now, but they're trying to keep it PG-13. Cursing eventually sneaks out. I'll hear a goddamn or a
Hmm.
that's badass. But that for those first few years, they would often have a character versus Santa Claus,
Hmm.
and Santa Claus went undefeated for years in a row. It's like because I'm drawing from every iteration, you know.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the animations that's coming out is called Super Santa, in which
Ah,
he believes he's a superhero. So
Super Santa, perfect,
Super Santa. I think that's
perfect.
one to look forward to. But I've got to admit, I'm looking forward to Man with a Bag because I'm a big Alan Ritchson fan, and
Yes,
I think him and Schwarzenegger are going to play off nicely together. I think this sort of storyline of Ritchson's character being released from prison, looking for some kind of redemption, trying to leave his past behind him, teaming up with Father Christmas to go and retrieve his bag. Mind, throwing a group of misfit elves, I think it sort of goes into silly territory, but I think there's a
yeah.
potential there for an all-round fun film. Well, that's it for this episode and our podcast's first season. It has been an amazing ride this past year, speaking to our talented guests and shining a spotlight on the diverse and exciting world of indie film. We'll be taking a break from podcasting, but don't worry, Cine Bijou will return to the airwaves in 2025. For now though, you can enjoy more of our reviews, insights and views over the coming weeks on our website www.cine-bijou.co.uk. Please make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on all our platforms, and why not add a comment or two? Let us know what you think of the show, what do you think of our website, what films you would like to see featured on here, what areas of indie film that you'd like us to cover more in the new year. We welcome all views from all walks of life. Cine Bijou wishes everyone a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.